This guide is based on the currently most common PF Raidplan 6PH, link in the description. If PF strats change substantially or any mistakes in this guide come to my attention, I will make an update video. Link also in the description. The boss will open with Deep Cut, a tank buster on the first two enmity targets, so both tanks should have their tank stands on. Next he will store one of two mechanics for later. Flip to A side will be 3 cone AoEs on a random tank, healer and DPS. To solve this, both tanks will stack north, all DPS south, and the two healers either east or west, depending on previous patterns. Flip to B side will be a shared line AoE on both healers, so group 1 will stack north, group 2 will stack south. Next, the boss will cast 1, 2, 3 or 4, snap, twist and drop the needle. He will point towards either east or west and there will be a wave effect there as well. The side the boss is pointing to will then be hit by 1, 2, 3 or 4 half-room AoEs in succession, then the other side will be hit once, just like in normal mode. The number has no bigger impact on the mechanic and I will not mention it again. Shortly after the AoE on the opposite side, the flip to side A or B will resolve. If it is A, then the healers will stay on the side that they last dodged towards. The boss will then repeat this mechanic with the other flip to A or B, then cast Celebrate Good Times, a raid-wide AoE. Next he will cast Disco Infernal. This will afflict every player with Burn Baby Burn. Either all supports or all DPS will have a timer of 23 seconds, the other role will have a timer of 31 seconds. Just like normal mode, you have to stand in a spotlight when this timer ends, but here you must also be the only player in that spotlight. At the same time, 8 spotlights will spawn in the arena, 4 outer and 4 inner. The 4 outer spotlights will always spawn in the same locations. The inner spotlights can spawn in one of two patterns, either clockwise of the markers like this, or counterclockwise like this. Then for the rest of the mechanic, the spotlights will move around the arena like this, staying in place for a while every 8 seconds. The outer spotlight's stopping tile will always be the same, while the inners will alternate between the sides of the markers. Also, at the same time, the entire arena will be covered in a checkboard pattern AoE that will alternate between exploding every other tile every 4 seconds after the boss casts Funky Floor. Because the checkboard pattern changes every 4 seconds and the spotlights stand still every 8 seconds, the checkboard will always be at the same pattern while the lights are still and always at the other pattern while the lights are moving. The initial checkboard pattern that you will see is the pattern that explodes during movement of the lights, so the other pattern is the one where the spotlights are still. 2 of the inner and 2 of the outer spotlights will be safe, the others will be unsafe. Healers and ranged will stand in the outer safe spotlights, Group 1 west, Group 2 east. Tanks and melees will stand in the inner safe spotlights, but because they alternate their position, everyone will stand in a different tile. Group 1 will stand in the northern and western spotlights at the A and D marker. Group 2 will stand in the eastern and southern spotlights at the B and C marker. To figure out your exact spot, look at the initial pattern. The shorter timer of Burn Baby Burn will be resolved in the tile next to the initially safe spotlights. The longer timers will resolve on the tiles with the unsafe spotlights. At the time that the respective debuffs resolves, these tiles will be safe and have a spotlight on them. Before Burn Baby Burn resolves, the boss will cast either Inside Out, a point blank AoE followed by a donut AoE, or he will cast Outside In, which is the same but in reverse. First the donut AoE, then the point blank. You have to dodge this while also moving out of the checkboard AoEs. The first point blank or donut AoE will hit at the same time as the checkboard AoEs, the second will hit shortly after. Right after this inside-outside mechanic, and just before the Burn Baby Burn debuffs run out, the boss will also cast either Flip to A side or Flip to B side, storing one of the same mechanics from before. After both sets of Burn Baby Burn resolve, the boss will cast Snap, Twist and drop the needle, then resolve the A side or B side mechanic. Then Disco Infernal is done. Here's the full mechanic from the Healer 1 perspective. I get a long debuff and the floor pattern tells me that southwest will be safe for me. It's outside in, so I will stay inside the hitbox for the next floor AoEs, then move out. Take note of Flip to A side and make your way to your spotlight. Range or healers who resolve first have to hurry a bit here. Now hurry back to the boss for snap, twist and drop the needle. Again, this can be somewhat tight. After dodging to the other side, there will be no more floor AoE, so don't worry about that. Next is another celebrate good times, another deep cut, then the next big mechanic. The boss will first cast Ensemble Assemble, summoning a line of frogs just like a normal mode. They can be ignored for now. Next will be Arcady Night Fever. The boss will perform the inside-out AoEs, starting with the point blank, then alternating between donut and point blank 8 times. With every AoE, a random player will be hit by a cone, alternating between a random DPS and a random support. Every player will be hit exactly once. Every cone applies a debuff and will also repeat itself at the same spot with the next AoE, so the player who just got hit has to move to the side to avoid their own cone's repeat, then return to their spot. You can also have the players who got hit move to stack north and south instead of going back to their initial spot. We have all supports go to the west and all DPS to the east. This way the cones will never go to the same side twice in a row, so there will always be space to dodge the repeat cones. The boss will also not have any positional requirements during this mechanic. This mechanic will require some eyeballing and constant movement. The debuffs you receive from the cones are Beta Wave and Alpha Wave. Their timers will be random, but in the end there will be 4 pairs of Alpha and Beta debuffs that resolve at the same time, with 1 pair resolving every 5 seconds. After the cleaves are done, the debuff timers will be 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds and 25 seconds. When your debuff resolves, you have to be stacked with and only with the opposite debuff that is resolving at the same time. While the debuffs resolve, the line of frogs will do the same left-right arena cleave sequence from normal mode. To minimize movement, we will form a conga line based on the timers. The shortest debuffs will go north to the A marker, the second shortest will go 1 tile south of them, the third another tile south, and the longest will stand at the C marker. Afterwards, the boss will cast Let's Pose, dealing some raid-wide damage and giving you a short damage buff if you dodged all the frog AoEs. Next is another flip to A or B side for later, then ride the waves. This will spawn cascading waves from the north just like normal mode, but here there will be 2 safe lines. Tanks and melees will go to whichever safe lane is closer to the middle, healers and ranged go to the other. The boss will then randomly cast either quarter beats or 8th beats. Quarter beats will be partner stacks on all DPS or all supports. They will be resolved by Group 1 North and Group 2 South in their respective lanes. 8th beats will be a spread AoE on everyone. DPS will move away from the supports to resolve this. The boss will then cast the other beat that it did not before, and each safe line will move 1 tile to the side. Then another random inside out or outside in, then snap, twist and drop the needle, resolving the A or B side from earlier. Next up is another deep cut tank buster and celebrate good times. Then the boss will cast Frogtourage, summoning 2 pairs of 2 frogs on 2 random neighboring cardinals. They will moonwalk across the arena, drawing an outline of an AoE that will then explode. They will always leave 2 safe squares at opposite cardinals, either north and south or east and west. At the same time, the boss will cast either quarter beats or 8th beats again. Group 1 will resolve this in the safe spot north or west, Group 2 in the safe spot south or east. For 8th beats, looking towards the boss, the tank will stand front left, melee front right, healer back left, ranged back right. For quarter beats, melee and tank will stack in front, healer and ranged in the back. To find the safe spots quickly, look at the moonwalking frogs as they first hit the wall. 1 pair of frogs will move towards each other. The space between them will be unsafe. The other pair will move away from each other. They are making the safe spots, so that wall and the opposite wall will be safe. Next is another Disco Infernal, again with Burn Baby Burn on a long and short timer for DPS and supports. The timers will be 9 seconds and 19 seconds this time, but there will be no funky floor. Instead, 4 frogs will spawn either on all cardinals or all intercardinals near the boss, and 4 spotlights will spawn at the wall, also either on cardinals or intercardinals. The spotlights will move 45 degrees around the arena, so landing on cardinals if they started on intercardinals and vice versa, then they will stop. The first Burn Baby Burn debuffs will resolve and the frogs will target the closest player with a cone AoE. The roll with the long debuffs will bait these cones, while the other roll stands in the spotlight. The spotlights will then continue for another 45 degrees and another set of 4 frogs will spawn. The short debuffs will then bait the cones, while the long debuffs stand in the spotlight. Your positions for this are based on your clock position color pairs. Each pair will resolve the frogs and spotlights at their color markers. Note that the frog and spotlight positions are both random, so you have to check where you actually have to aim your cone bait. Just before the second set resolves, the boss will cast another flip to A or B side, then immediately snap, twist and drop the needle, resolving the flip right then. Next is another Celebrate Good Times, then the second ensemble assemble. The boss will cast Arcady Night Fever again, and we will deal with it the same way we did before. This time, however, there will be no debuffs. The frogs will then again resolve their AoEs, but they will be a lot faster and they can be front and back as well as left and right. If you dodged everything, you will again get a damage buff. Next is another Frogtourage. 2 frogs will spawn in neighboring intercardinals and cast Do the Hustle, cleaving either their right or left side, as indicated by both their stance and the glowing effect on their side. In the remaining intercardinals, another set of frogs will spawn that will do the same thing, then the boss will also do a half arena cleave. There is nothing special here, just use your eyes and dodge it. Next, 2 frogs will spawn on a random cardinal wall and moonwalk to trace floor AoEs. At the same time, 4 stationary frogs will spawn on each intercardinal. They will hit the closest player with the cone AoE when the floor AoE resolves. The moonwalking frogs will form one of 2 patterns. If they move away from each other at the wall, they will form a safe lane in the middle. The cones will then be baited like this, while the non-baiting roll stacks in the middle. If the moonwalking frogs move towards each other at the wall, they will hit the middle and leave the sides safe. The cones will then be baited like this, with the non-baiting roll standing in the middle, a couple steps away from the wall so they don't bait on accident. The mechanic will then repeat, with the stationary frogs in the exact same place and the moonwalking frogs making the other pattern they did not do before. The supports will always bait the first set of cones, the DPS will always bait the second set of cones. The positioning is again based on color pairs, so you will always bait the same frog. Next up is another Frogtourage Do the Hustle, but this time with 2 frogs and the boss doing it at the same time, leaving only an 8th pizza slice safe. Again, nothing special, just find the safe spot. Right after is another Deep Cut Tank Buster, then the boss will cast Funky Floor again. This time there will be no spotlights, but instead quarter beats or 8th beats. Then, randomly, inside out or outside in, and finally, the other quarter beats or 8th beats. For 8th beats, spread out roughly at your clock positions. For quarter beats, stack with your color partner. That'll be the last mechanic. Now it's just 2 more Celebrate Good Times, then the boss will enrage. If you have any questions or comments, drop them down below or join the Discord server. Good luck in your prog, and I'll see you in the Party Finder.